I'm with my good friend of my assemblyman, Joe Saladino, and we're talking about 2 years ago, Superstorm Sandy and the struggles that people are still having to this day.
Saw it firsthand as a survivor. Impacted. My home was entirely destroyed in that hurricane. Waves breaking inside the house for 7 hours. Saw it firsthand as a survivor. Impacted. My home was entirely destroyed in that hurricane. Waves breaking inside the house for 7 hours. Saw it firsthand as a survivor. Impacted. My home was entirely destroyed in that hurricane. Waves breaking inside the house for 7 hours.
Okay, I'd like to know the building files I reviewed today. I'd like to make sure that they're the complete building files, that there's not going to be any other. I requested to view all the files for each property. I just want to make sure that, for instance, if there were items that I thought might have needed to be in a building file that they weren't, I don't want to say, oh, this is missing this, and then find out, like I have in the past, that, oh, well, you didn't seal the building files. So was that specifically for foil number 27868?
27868.
Yeah, that's 123 Stillwater Avenue.
123 Stillwater.
That's
I think
the.
Cindy just brought it to you.
Yeah, no, I looked at it and
Checked it,
everything.
yeah.
I checked it. I just want to make sure that that's the complete file, so I can consider the request
As
closed.
far as we know, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, that's what we requested from the building department. That's what we were supplied.
Okay.
Saw it firsthand as a survivor. Impacted. My home was entirely destroyed in that hurricane. Waves breaking inside the house for 7 hours.
Resolution 103 is a resolution, is a gentleman that is applying. It says the town's in receipt for an application for a permit to erect, maintain, alter, and improve a dock, pier, float, bulkhead, or other mooring. I started thinking about this because I had met with Mr. Casciano and Tim Zyke a number of times reviewing building files in association with possible misappropriation of municipal funds right down the block from your house at 135 Stillwater. And we had an opportunity to review the building file of 135 Stillwater, and at the time I was also reviewing Frank Antetomaso's building file. He's a former Department of Public Works Commissioner, and you know who Frank Antetomaso is, Mr. Saladino. So what I noticed was in Mr. Antetomaso's building file, there were no permits or anything from 207 onwards. And then I actually reviewed your building file, Mr. Saladino, and I was ensured that I had reviewed the complete building file. And I noticed that in your file, there are no building permits or anything from 207 onwards. Coincidentally, you had some bulkhead work done. It looked like you had your bulkhead done and you had applied to have like a dock and a breakwater done, but it doesn't look like you did that. At the very same time in 207 that Frank Antetomaso did, and it looks like you both used the same companies to do it. But what I was able to determine by using Google Earth satellite images is that your home, Mr. Saladino, was pretty badly damaged by Irene and Sandy. I have pictures of it here. And I was able to compile a chronological list of how the work was performed at your house. And here's what it looks like now, substantial construction done. And the same thing for Mr. Antetomaso. Now, I don't think it's fair that a resident has to file and go through this when the supervisor and vendors that are associated with the town of Oyster Bay apparently do construction on their homes without applying for the correct permits or COs or anything. So I prepared a code enforcement, a request for investigation both on your premises and on Mr. Antetomaso's premises, and I'd like to turn them into you with these photographs to substantiate what I'm saying right now, directly to you. And I would ask, and I would hope, I'd ask Mr. Casciano at the last meeting that we resume our meetings to review all this information, because residents still want to know what's happening at 135. I'm just going to let the record show, I'm handing this to the clerk. Sorry, Mr. Altman. Residents still want to find out what's happening at 135 Stillwater, what's going on at 2 Dolphin, what's going on with Jomar, and now what the permit conditions are with our supervisor here. On to 109, 108, 109. I had brought this up a
Before you
couple
move
meetings
on,
ago.
you had come up to speak about 71 Jefferson, but then
Excuse me?
71 Jefferson Place, Massapequa.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you came up to speak on Resolution 103.
Yeah, I just finished. I'm moving on to 108,
But
109.
maybe I missed, what was the issue with...
The issue is, I don't think it's fair that this resident has to go through this subject and maybe pay fines and process fees, and you don't. That's the issue.
That's not the case. Thank you.
I'm with my good friend of my assemblyman, Joe Saladino, and we're talking about 2 years ago, Superstorm Sandy and the struggles that people are still having to this day.
First of all, thank you for that, and it's very true. It's probably one of the reasons my home's not done yet.
Actually, I want to speak to you about a number of these, because these are those property cleanups again. And these all have to do with notices of violations being issued. And quite frankly, I think that it's hypocritical and a conflict of interest for you to vote on any of these resolutions, because from what I've seen, Mr. Interim Supervisor, you don't follow the town's building codes yourself. All right, I've made a complaint based on your property, and I just want to say, the last person that I saw that acted the way you did with building files was Mr. Ippolito.
Saw it firsthand as a survivor. Impacted. My home was entirely destroyed in a hurricane. Waves breaking inside the house for 7 hours.
So I have a couple more questions that I've been asking you since you got elected here, and maybe you can provide the answers to these too. Because nobody else can, only you can. Who else was interviewed before you approved Justin McCaffrey's 211 waiver? You told me 26 people. Why did you hire a non-resident as the town attorney? How did you set the salary of the deputy supervisor and town attorney without the town board adopting such via resolution as per New York State law? How did you have your personal home cleaned up after Sandy by TOB sanitation crews, and why didn't you obtain the required permits before you rebuilt your home? Why did former town attorney Leonard Genova and Councilwoman Alicia conspire to hire Jeffrey Lesser to represent John Vendetto and Len Genova in their criminal or civil actions? Those are questions that I've been asking you and the board members since you were appointed, and you haven't answered any of them. If you'd like to answer them now, I'd love to sit down and listen to what you have to say. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Robert Wade.
Take that as a no.
From Cross River.
Saw it firsthand as a survivor. Impacted. My home was entirely destroyed in a hurricane. Waves breaking inside the house for 7 hours. First of all, thank you for that, and it's very true. It's probably one of the reasons my home's not done yet.
I apologize.
In the light of transparency,
Yes.
and I'm going to give you, Mr. Supervisor, and then I'm going to leave. In the light of transparency, I'm going to give you an opportunity to clear up. I'm setting you up right now to clear up something that is really, in my opinion, defaming your reputation. Not reputation. That's not what I
I don't
mean.
believe that to be the
It's
case.
giving the public a
We're
bad
trying to-
impression about you coming in as transparent and ethical when you have been accused of violating the town code, and it shocks me that you don't even respond to it.
Sir, we appreciate your testimony.
You don't want to respond to that?
Sir, I
Why don't
realize...
why don't you be honest? You say honest, and why don't you say I'm in compliance, or I made a mistake, or I'm working on it? Why don't you say something? It's hurting your persona.
Thank you for your testimony. We very much appreciate it.
Unbelievable.
Mr. Siracusa is next.
Unbelievable. Who?
Saw it firsthand as a survivor. Impacted. My home was entirely destroyed in a hurricane. Waves breaking inside the house for 7 hours.
He's a duck.